This is episode 29 of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing with my guest, Dusten Hendrickson. Dusten, how are you? Welcome to the show.
I'm great, Jonathan. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. How are you
Yeah,
doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks. And it's a pleasure to have you. I'm just going to read your bio in quick, and then we're going to get right into it. Dusten is the founder of Mailbox Money and a real estate syndicator. A seasoned investor. You've been in real estate investing of some kind since 2003. His career from owning a roofing crew, building homes, duplexes, apartments, gained the experience that it required to now vertically integrate all of the things, development, construction, property management, and asset management into syndications. It's been a nice ride since 2003. How did you first get into investing?
My mom wanted to build a duplex and she didn't want to do it by herself. And she's like, "Hey, will you do most of the work if I finance it?" And I said, "Absolutely."
You were already a contractor at the time?
Yeah, I was a roofing contractor and I wanted to get more into the houses. I like the architecture, I like the building. So I figured that'd be the best way to build for myself and learn how to do it, make all the
Yeah.
mistakes.
Yeah, that's cool. Did your mom have an interest, or was she doing homes before that, or was it something that she got interested then?
She had an interest, but she is very risk averse. She's a CPA, so she needs someone like me to come in and be like, "Let's just go."
Yeah, right. Deposit the money, have somebody who I trust to help do the work and manage it. So how did that first go, and how was it doing your first thing with your mom?
It went fantastic because she trusts me and my expertise, and I also trust her and her expertise, so we don't butt heads too much. You know,
Yeah,
mother-son relationship, we butt heads a little bit, but nothing that we can't get over. And it went really well. We built it for very cheap. We did as much labor as we could to pull all the costs down, and we had immediately had like 30% equity right off the bat, and so our rents came in much higher than we anticipated, and everything was very good right out of the gate.
yeah. So before you got to that, were you thinking? I mean, you're obviously involved in real estate because you're as a roofing contractor, you're dealing with real estate all the time. But were you thinking of investing back then in 2003?
No, I was just thinking about making money and, maybe building this house or duplex. I live in one side, they can rent the other side out. I'll get more experience. I'll know how to build. I wasn't actually thinking of the actual investment at the time. Not really, no.
Yeah. Did you actually end up moving into that place?
Yes, and it was a very nice first home. And then learned how to property manage, right, with our neighbors right
Yeah.
next door. It went very well. Really nice neighborhood. We had to, the lot was like 20,000. That same lot would be $100,000.
Yeah.
So it was good, pretty good deal.
Was this in Sioux Falls, South Dakota?
This was in Brookings, South Dakota. It's just 45
Oh,
minutes
okay.
north. 45 minutes north.
Okay. Yeah, so you were really like advanced on the house hacking because now house hacking is such a popular term for that live-in, landlording, but you were way ahead of the game then. How did you start to adjust to being a landlord at the time?
To me, it was very easy. I just was kind of friends with the people next door, so they never really gave us any grief.
Yeah.
Anytime they needed anything, they just came over and asked. And it's a new construction, so it was really, hardly anything ever went wrong. It was very easy.
Yeah, I think people forget now the value of new construction. They're always looking for deals and they say, well, I have to pay up for something turnkey, but then there's no maintenance for 10 years, basically, if done right. So as you moved on, because of your experience with that, was that the way that you kind of wanted to keep it going?
Yes, and also you get used to brand new, and then you go and buy an old, and you definitely underestimate the expenses and the time and everything that's going to take. And then how, when you do have a problem, the property manager usually doesn't give you the best solution right out the gate. You have to work with them on every problem to get the most value. And expenses, specifically expenses, just anything, the emergency expenses, that's usually what eats up most of your profits.
Yeah. And I would think it's especially frustrating coming from your first one, which you built, and it's a new build. Then when you're dealing with somebody else's, not only are you obviously not getting the product that you want, but you're having to redo a bunch of stuff that should have been done correctly, that you would have done correctly if you did it, right?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, I find that frustrating as a flipper, just undoing stuff that I wish it was just a clean slate, but you end up, it's like when you open the wall and then you're like, oh, now I'm in trouble.
Well, there's an art to that too. You got to be able to see it and know it's wrong and still cover it back up to get the flip
Yeah.
done.
Yeah, make sure it's tight. So when you finished the first one and you were living in it, is that when it really kind of set in? Like, wait, I can actually do this as part of my other business, and they can work together.
Yeah. And then we started building more duplexes, another duplex, another duplex. I didn't really understand scale. I didn't understand I should have built a fourplex. I should have built a 12plex.
Right.
And so 10 years after the fact, that's kind of when we got into scale. And then we put two and two together and said, we got to get out of the single family residential game. We got to get more commercial all across the board.
Yeah. So now you're still building? What do those look like? How many units is like your target now, depending on the lot size?
Well, our target is 150 units, but it's actually much harder to get to that number because there's so many constraints and there's so much more value in development that you can still build a 60 unit. Like we're building a 60 unit now. And then across the street, we're going to buy the second parcel and build a 74. So all in total, we'll have 130 some units. We like to do that, but we also don't mind just building 50 units. And even if you can buy 50 units and get a good deal, but new construction, when you do 50 units, it's still good enough. But we try to always target 150, but it's much harder than you would think with all the different requirements they have with the lot sizes. So
yeah. And are you sticking all close to around you in South Dakota?
yeah, I like to focus on fewer areas, high quality areas, and not worry about deals that I miss. And I see a lot of guys getting spread too thin because they'll have one in this town that's 45 minutes away, one in this town that's 2 hours.
Yeah.
Had they lumped them all together, they could make quite a bit more.
Yeah, your management fees are higher. It's harder to self-manage because you have to move further. Your crews for construction don't want to do the same job, so you're working with different crews or skeleton crews, and it doesn't work the same. One other thing I think is interesting about what you're saying is that I've always promoted what I call clustering, which is just having a bunch of buildings near each other because you can keep raising the value on each other. There you go. It's back. So when you said like you had like a 60 across from a 70, when you finish the 60, you just kind of set the prices for what you're going to do across the street, and they should scale up as you go, as there's more inventory, right?
Yeah. And we set the pricing, and then depending on how fast we fill it up, then we push pricing immediately. If it fills up really fast and it's like, oh, we probably rented these too cheap. And then we try to push it rents immediately on whatever vacancies come available.
Yeah. So these all just all rentable apartments? Are you eventually ever condoizing any of them and then selling the apartments off? Or are these all rentals?
All rentals. Condoing is, I've never been good at making money when I sell stuff. I'm way better at making money owning it, keeping it long term, and refinancing. So to condo it out and sell it, and then if it's a really good building, I'm always sad in the future, like, why did I sell all that? So I'm not really much of a seller developer. I like to keep pretty much everything.
Yeah, I think that suits though. You're staying kind of local anyway. So if you're local, you're building communities. So it's really your community that you're helping by doing it. So why sell it to someone else who might come in and mess it up?
Yeah, and then also those, everyone that's buying it thinks that you built it the same as, the crappy stuff. So then they don't understand that you did put a lot of money into it.
Yeah.
So I can keep it and get that value out. If I keep it 20 years, I know I'm going to get most of that value.
Yeah. Did your mom stay involved until now, or she just like, look, you're doing too much. Have fun with that.
Yes,
Send me some of the profits.
So both. So she, sometimes she'll join a syndication here and there, but yeah, the deals are too big. But she got used to 150 unit deals, so now she thinks when I do a 60 unit, it's not that big, even though it would have been 5 years ago.
Yeah,
and
right.
So she'll invest with me in the smaller stuff as well. But yeah, she still helps me. She advises me on taxes and all kinds of different things.
Yeah, I mean, that can save you a lot of money long term, knowing how to place everything and make sure that it's set up the right way. So in terms of so you went from roofing contractor obviously into contracting, and then there's so many contractors and ancillary, contracting positions, plumbers, electricians who want to get into real estate investing, what would be one thing that you could tell them that makes it easier to get in? Obviously, you have to figure out the money portion, but you have a special set of skills that helps you, over other people in terms of what you're going to do with the properties. And I think a lot of people want to know, how do they get going in that?
So I think if you're a subcontractor, it's the easiest. If you're working on an apartment, ask if you can put in some equity. Can I put in some of my payment that I'm going to get in equity? And right now, most contractors have a lot of cash, and most contractors are not that sophisticated, so they don't really know where to invest. So they end up buying skid steers and trucks, to get their tax write-offs. Well, once I can teach them, like, hey, start investing in real estate. And it makes it easier because I came from that. They can see like, oh, he came from where he was working, and now he's not working as much.
Yeah.
We should follow what he's doing. And so I encourage plumbers and contractors to bring in money, and we get quite a bit of equity from our contractors. On this last deal, we probably raised almost 25% of the deal through, and that was a $6 million raise, and we probably raised, 1.5 to 2 million just in equity from the subcontractors.
Yeah, that's awesome. Then they have more skin in the game for the project they're working on. They're going to take it more seriously, as opposed to just hourly work with their subs of subs, which never, they don't care about the project. That's interesting. I think that's something go ahead.
We do the same with our GC, which I think the GC is the most important. Then you bring him on as an owner. Now he treats the project different. It becomes his most important project. Well, hopefully it does.
Yeah.
And then he starts talking to his subs, and now I can even go and talk to his subs and get his subs to bring in equity as well.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, I think the skin in the game is so important. It's what usually the lag is between like outside property management, because they're just doing a job. They don't it's not their property. They don't even really care about the caretaking that much. They're just trying to manage, their percentage. But so how many different contractors or subs do you think were in on on a deal?
I think we had maybe 8 on the last deal. I mean, one guy alone brought in $750K. Another guy brought in 400. So, I mean, just those 2 are a lot. And then we had maybe roughly 6 other people.
But that also sets the stage for you. You get another opportunity, you can just do it again. Everybody seems to be, you can stick with the same crew and just add more people each time.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So what was like the turning point for you to scale when you just had you started with the twin, and then obviously there's something that happens where you're like, oh, we can go bigger with this.
Okay. So we started going bigger, but not understanding that you should just 10X once you have the knowledge. So we went to, 4? We went to like 8 units, 10 units, 12 units. Then we did 30 units, 24 units. We're kind of at that 30 unit range.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I look up and I notice that our company is just flatlining. We're not actually gaining. And we started looking in, and we were so inefficient because we were building homes, we were building apartments, we were buying value add, and we were flipping it. We weren't selling it really, but we were flipping it. We were building affordable housing communities. We were building affordable homes. We would flip those as well. And then we were building apartments or buying apartments. So we were doing like 8 different things in the real estate market. And we were working with custom homeowners, which is the worst customer in the world.
Yeah, for sure.
And so all of that and the stress, and I look up and it's like, we are actually we're doing the same as we were last year or the year before, when we had half the work or 25% of the work. We're making the same amount of money. And that's when I was like, okay, I need to figure this out. I need to learn about scale or whatever. And then at that time, someone's like, hey, you want to go learn about syndication down in Nashville with me? And I said, sure. I think it was 2018 or 17, one of the years, 18 probably. So went down there and I basically learned like, oh, I got to get rid of all this junk and just go to 150 units, roughly. That's where the aim was.
Yeah. Was it the light bulb of just kind of being around other people that had done it, or just the content coming out?
It wasn't even a light bulb moment. So I had to go through it. There was a light bulb that was like, hey, I need to learn about this because I didn't quite understand the lingo. But but I knew more than most people in the room about real estate. I just
Yeah,
didn't
yeah.
know the sophisticated level of syndication. And so went through all that, and then slowly it built on top of each other, got a partner. We started breaking down all of our assets, and we started learning like, oh yeah, look how many hours we put into this single family. We make $200 a month.
Yeah.
Look how many hours we put into this 30 unit, and we make $6,000 a month. Like, massive amount of difference. And the amount of time spent on each project is almost the same.
So
Like I can spend a 150 unit project takes me pretty much the same as a 60 unit project.
right. Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. So did you get rid of basically everything except the big apartment complexes?
Yeah, I mean, I still own the 10-plex and 8-plexes because they're just mine personally. I have a
Yeah,
lot of
yeah.
equity and they cash flow extremely well, but I wouldn't buy those now unless they were a really good deal. So
Yeah. Yeah, so you also got into, are a lot of the projects you do, are they green builds? Because I know I saw that you were working with efficiency builds as part of your practice before, and that's something that obviously does give you some tax benefits, but also benefits the renters and the entire project. Tell us a little bit about that.
I actually prefer to focus on wellness design because the green industry is so contradictory. If you start looking into it, you're like, oh, well, this insulation is going to make it green because it's going to save this much money. But then you're like, no, that insulation will kill you because it's toxic. And so we look in and we're like, okay, so what is actually green? Well, anything that improves your life and saves you money is green. So we started, how do you improve comfort? How do you do all that? How do you improve the livability of the place? How do you improve people's lives when they're living in it? And it all comes to wellness design, which is inherently green, but wellness design is more about how much better does living in this place make you feel than a standard construction. And that's what we focus on. Mainly it's natural light, honestly, is the biggest factor.
Yeah, that's awesome because I agree with you. I feel like the green industry, once it became an industry, now everything needs to be certified and fake, and there's lobbyists around it, and it makes it just much more difficult to know, like, are we really all doing this for the right reason? You know, do I need this to be some fake certification when you can do what you're saying? You're trying to figure out. So are you doing this wellness design for like the whole community? And then also obviously apartment by apartment in terms of how you're setting them up? It's
more the actual individual unit is the most important, but then the whole community kind of reflects the units anyway. But it's a passion of mine because I just know how much better it is to wake up and live in a wellness designed home. It's not even comparable. I call them happy homes because people, when they move into them, they're happier than when they were their previous home.
Yeah, so you said natural lights at the top of the list. Obviously, that's big, you know, for cross light also. But what are some other features that help it become kind of a wellness design for the apartments complexes?
Well, the heat, right? So if you're just going to throw on a standard HVAC equipment and throw the AC unit out on the deck and take up half the porch, that's like the cheap way of doing it. So we like to use better HVAC systems that aren't necessarily forced air either, and so then it's a better heat. It's a more even heat, and then quiet comfort is huge. So we insulate a lot, and we do as much as we can to reduce noise. Although density, you're just going to get some noise here and there, and then the flow of certain things. You try to always have plenty of room in the bathrooms. Always do islands, you know, in the kitchens if possible.
Yeah.
The flooring is usually always it's a raw. We try to bring in more raw, real type woods.
Yeah.
And then we love white on white. The brighter interiors, the nicer.
Yeah, I mean, if you match natural light with light colors, you're definitely going to feel better. Especially, obviously, South Dakota pretty heavy on the winters, so the natural light can help balance that out. You know, I think for everybody, that's really interesting. I think that probably most people building apartment buildings aren't thinking like that. Does it help you on your future value and pricing, just in terms of why people are coming there?
Yep. So our lot, when we walk into our units, there's literally zero inventory that you can compare it to. So we stay right on top of the trends, and the majority of the apartments are old, and you know, so right off the gate we're in the top 10%. And then when you compare with that 10%, we are able to be at the top of that 10% as well, because we use larger windows. We pay more attention to what people want at this exact time. and it improves our occupancy massively because everyone actually wants to live in these units.
Yeah.
And we can build smaller square footage because it feels so much bigger than normal that they don't really understand. They just see, oh, it's a one bedroom. They don't understand that this is 600 square foot and the other one is 700 square foot. And so we can charge the same or more.
Yes, your price per square foot's going to be much higher than the crappy
Yes.
apartments by far. But I think you're talking about things that are aesthetically based, like flow. The flow of a house can make someone feel, like you said, so much more comfortable living there in way less space because you're not bumping into things, because somebody thought about where to put stuff, the functionality, instead of just, mass constructing it. And I've been in plenty of just even everything, townhouse, apartments, condos, where you're like, why did they even do it like this? It makes no sense. So I do think that it must help you scale, because even the builders who aren't thinking like that, even when they build new stuff, it's still not going to compare, even if it's newer. Even if they're 5 years newer than you, it's just newer, but the functionality is not going to be close.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things the apartment guys do is they immediately make the windows smaller. I mean, when I design a project for someone, almost immediately the first thing that goes is windows get smaller. So right away they're cutting all the glass that I put in there down to try and get it to budget. And so that's one thing I always push for is massive windows, and it pays for itself through the pro forma over and over. We literally have 100% occupancy, so it's really tough for us to find where we're supposed to be as peak rents,
Right?
Because we still end up being at 100%, and you're not supposed to ever be at 100%, but it just feels like we're always there.
But then I feel like the tenants always feel they're getting value because they know it's fully rented. It's like hard to get in there. Then you have a demand spectrum. And if you want to go up, nobody's going to say, oh, why are you going up? Well, we're at 100%. So
yeah,
we can.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's really good. So I guess you never transferred that into single families because you didn't go back. But I think there's a lot of failure in flipping and new home construction that are passing on the kind of well-being model that you're talking about.
Yeah, I did it with houses and it didn't work as well because people kind of want to pay per square foot on a house, which is a little bit weird, right? People first in an apartment, somehow they don't really figure that. But on a house, it's all about price per square foot, and no one wants to pay the top dollar per square foot unless it's a perfect location. And most perfect locations, you're not building new houses in. And
Yeah.
I couldn't figure out how to make any money selling houses. I think I would always encourage everybody to do not build houses for sale. And if you do want to build houses for sale, keep them for 5 years and then sell them.
Yeah.
That's really the only way to make any money in that housing market.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, you want to get the first 5 years for yourself, get the appreciation as well as the rents. Yeah, I do. I think it's hard. You mentioned something interesting also about the noise factor. I mean, I think in any apartment complex that has multiple floors, noise is always going to be an issue. And like you said, density is still there, but if you can do things to reduce the noise, then that to me as a landlord or property manager just means I'm getting less calls. I'm getting less calls about Bobby and Sally upstairs, tap dancing on the floor or whatever. And my goal as a landlord has always been to get less calls by providing a better product. And it sounds like that is right in line with your philosophy.
Yeah. Oh, one other thing too that I forgot to mention is that when you do have a really nice modern exterior or interior, it's super easy to build buzz. Everyone starts talking about it, and it's super marketable. It goes well all over Instagram, social media. You can use it for your backgrounds and your videos, and you build the buzz, and then that also improves your occupancy as well. And you don't really need all the expensive subscriptions.
Yeah, and one other really good thing about the way that you've done it in terms of clustering around your local market, it's like if people wanted to get into one complex and it's sold out, they know you have something like you can say, well, we have 72 units that are finishing over in this part of town if you want to get on that waiting list. Do you end up with waiting lists for projects as they're coming to be ready?
But yes, we do have sort of waiting lists, but I found out that the waiting lists don't really matter. We can pretty much do the waiting list, do all that stuff, or we can just release 1 month prior and just fill the whole thing up instantly.
Yeah.
With the amount of buzz that we build.
With the way that you guys build, if it's a complex space, are you releasing all the units at the same time, or do you ever do them in shifts?
Yeah, we try to do them in shifts because we try to want the first building done, get 12 people in there.
Yeah,
The second
perfect.
building, get another 12, and try to release them every month. And I mean, the bank even likes it a little bit better too because all of a sudden you have cash flow coming in
Yeah,
while you're still
exactly.
doing the project, and they can already see it. They don't get nervous because you're already showing them cash flow long before the project's even supposed to be delivered,
Yeah.
and they're like, "Oh, okay, great," and then they don't even hardly question anything from that point.
Yeah. Are you raising the price in between the shifts on the units? If you go in like 4 blocks or 4 quarters, does the price go up for the second block?
On the next one it will. This last one we had three of them and we pre-leased, so we didn't really do it. We didn't realize the demand is going to be so high. Our
Yeah.
fourth building that came online though, we raised 10% and we're still getting it.
Yeah. I mean, if you just think about like developments for sale, that's how they scale the most. If they're building like whatever, one of the big companies building 100 units, they're gonna, they'll sell the first at like a real pre-price so people can pre-buy. Because in Florida, a lot of people I know were pre-buying condos and like high-rise buildings, like before it started, and then like just when they break ground, they would sell. But then the next person would also sell before it's done because the market was so hot for that. But it's interesting because you're keeping them as rentals, but I still think, it's not like you can charge so much more because the rent differential is not going to be great. But, if you have 12 more units and you get whatever it is, $25 more a month, that's going to turn out to be a lot over the long term.
Yeah. Yep.
What do you think the biggest lesson you've learned over all this time, just in terms of, the development of properties? Because I think people start thinking, maybe I want to get into development, but it sounds like a lot. When you hear somebody say, oh, we're doing 70 units here and 60 units here, how have you set up your processes to make it so it doesn't drive you crazy or out?
Incredibly good partners.
How did you find
Probably
them?
the most valuable lesson, this is referring to partners, and I'll answer how I found the partners too. The most valuable lesson I had is that you need to make sure that your partners aren't exactly like you. Because
Yeah.
everyone's like, oh, I want to go get a partner that's cool. We're bros. We hang out. We do the same thing. And then you realize, oh, wow, we do the same exact thing. We're both good at the same thing.
Yeah.
And we
Which means you're
suck as
bad at the
partners.
same things. Yeah.
Yes, which means that nobody knows what they're supposed to do because,
Yeah.
well, that guy does what I do. Why isn't he pulling his weight? And all of a sudden you can feel the 50-50 not being 50-50. Now, when you get a partner that's like, I have Omar Khan's one of my partners, and he's like a data scientist, and I hate numbers. So it's perfect. Although we still get along, we're not even close to the same. We have a great relationship, but we're not even close to the same person. And then, I don't know how long it takes him to do his stuff. He doesn't know how long it takes him to do my stuff. He just knows he can't do what I do, and I can't do
Yeah.
what he does. So there's no fighting. Then I have another partner, Caleb Veldhouse. He's the GC. We're actually very similar, but we don't do any of the same tasks. He doesn't like design or know anything about it, and I don't really like GCing, and I don't know much about the commercial level GC.
Yeah.
He's way better at being a GC than I am, and he enjoys it, and I'm way better at designing than him, and I enjoy it. So we're not button heads there either.
I mean, that's a great point. I do think if everybody is the same, or if you're talking disk types, everybody has the same type, you're all going to want to do the same thing. So you're not going to be efficient.
Yeah.
Everyone's going to want to, let me look over your design. Well, why are we doing that twice when one of us could be doing something else? How did you?
Well,
yeah, go ahead.
Everyone wants their partner to be cool, right? Especially when you first start out, you want your cool partner, and usually that partner is exactly like you. So you have to find a cool partner that's opposite of you.
Yeah. So where did you find the partners for this? Because it seems like you've been at least in some of these partnerships for a while.
So I found the partnership with Omar. He's the guy that I met. He was at the first deal in Nashville. And so I met him at Nashville at a Jake and Gino conference.
Oh, nice.
And he basically was like, hey, you should teach me how to develop, and I'll teach you how to scale and syndicate. And so that worked fantastic. And then Caleb, I met him through a mutual friend. It was basically he's brother-in-law with this guy. And they didn't introduce us to be partners or anything. They just introduced us to have fun. And then, after a few years went by, we just kind of got together.
Yeah, that's awesome. And now you really have your team set up, so you don't have to really worry about it in the future.
Yeah.
In terms of yeah, go ahead.
My like minor partners, or my, I still have a lot of partners from when I was a GC, and they can help us as well. I bring in some of those guys to help Caleb, because sometimes Caleb will have a shortfall and he'll need something, and I have other connections that he doesn't have contact with, so I can bring them in too. And same with all the other guys. So we now leverage all of their contacts.
Yeah.
Omar, he has lawyers and CPAs, and we use those guys. So it really works out nice.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like you took the time to set it up the right way, but built connections. And I think a lot of new investors just want to get into the money so quickly they forget that you need the relationships to get farther. If you want to have hundreds of units, you're not doing that all yourself. And if you are, you're probably missing a lot of stuff, because like you said, you're not going to have that other point of view along the way to help you. And if you're paying everyone for their point of view, they have ulterior motives a lot of the time. So you really all have to be on the same page, which goes back to that skin in the game that you talked about in the beginning. Awesome. So one of the things in the form that I sent you that you said most important trait for a real estate investor to have, you said persistence. Explain what you mean and how you think, like, for modern investors, how they really need it. Because obviously I think it's important, but I'd love to hear what you have to say on that.
Okay, so persistence, I guess, if it's involved with development or investing, because it's more involved, the persistence is more involved on the investing side, because it takes so long to find a deal. So you have to be persistent and patient at the same time, because why would someone give you their equity? But you have to figure out how you can get their equity to get a good deal. I don't think that real estate at market rate is, I mean, it's still an okay investment, but it's just not the same as a good deal. And when you have insider experience, or you have that knowledge, it's like insider trading, right? You're just better at it. You can get a better deal. So you have to be patient for those deals to come along, because most people won't give them to you. And then the persistence in development is like, it just takes forever to get anything done. And then you got to deal with the government officials that just told you that they want you to build this thing, but then they're going to tell you that they want you to build it this way because of these other rules. And you've got like the fire department that's fighting the historical, that's fighting the city. Like, they all are contradicting rules. So which rule actually wins over? And you just have to be patient with the process and realize that the rules are they're just made because they had one problem, and they're trying to put this blanket rule on, and now it creates more problems. And you have to, that's the persistence. Like, then the banker, same thing. The banker dropped you now, and you got to go find another bank at the 11th hour, whatever. Or your equity, you can't raise enough equity. And now, so you just have to be persistent and just keep moving the needle forward over and over and over. And I found every single real estate guy that's persistent eventually will accomplish their goal. And if you're not persistent, you'll be like, must not be a good idea. I'll just move on.
Yeah, I find like people who lack persistence don't have long-term thinking capabilities. They think short-term. So when, like you said, they don't get the result they want in a month, they're like, oh, well, this sucks. It's like if you just did the same thing for 3 months, it would work, but they just give up too early because it's hard, It's hard to wait on something, especially when you want to invest. But like, investment to me, when I think of it as a definition, is like long-term. You're going to invest for 3 weeks. You have to wait for the return, later on. So how many units do you own now, like, as part of your group?
I just had this figured out. Okay, so LP, I think I'm involved in 2,000 units, LP investing, and GP is 888.
Wow, okay.
888.
Do you have your own property management company that manages them all? Is it out?
No. I work very closely with many property management companies. But I don't actually have my own property management company. I know how to do it, though, and it's one of my least favorite jobs is the property management. I don't like dealing with the direct consumer for some reason. I like to have someone else deal with all that day-to-day stuff.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's important, though. I think if you start just from your one-off landlord like you did, you have a twin and you're house hacking and one, you have to learn what your tolerance is as a landlord, because like I'm the same. I don't want to deal with the tenant problems. I just don't want to. I would rather pay someone who can do a good job to do it and take care of them. I'm fine making sure they're secure, but I don't want to get a call at like 9 at night because something's dripping. That's just not for me. And I think if you don't know that, you can get in over your head, and then, landlords become slumlords when they just don't respond, but they should have known that's just not their thing,
Right.
And then the buildings end up suffering for it. So your company's called Mailbox Money. Tell us what you guys do overall. Is it it's all, because it's a lot of different things all together, right?
Yes, it's a lot of different things, but when it comes down to it, it's real estate investments. We try to take your money and give you a place to invest it other than index funds. Index funds, you can make 10%, you can make 20% investing with us, which is usually what pretty decent operators make anyways. When you start operating your own stuff, you make about 20% once you figure in your labor and stuff. So you can passively invest in a much bigger project that's scaled better with better financing and better lawyers and CPAs working on it. And you can still make the same money and be completely passive. That's kind of what we do. But we buy value add acquisitions, and we develop we've developed wellness design. And we just I prefer development because I've done it longer, and I can always build in the best location. And it's very hard to find an apartment for sale in the best location. Yeah.
So for say you have a 70 unit or 100 unit, how many people are involved in that syndication total, like investors?
They're normally in between 20 and $30 million. So I'd say 50 investors on average is what we have per deal.
Yeah, that's pretty good and manageable. How many are in the GP slot? Just a few?
3 to 5.
Yeah.
Usually.
Yeah. And so, for everybody who doesn't know, GP's your general partner, LP's your limited partner. What's the limited partner's access? I know we were joking about it before on the pre-call.
Oh,
are they really intended to be silent in these deals?
Yes. So what we tell them is, hey, you want to ever give us any input, you can. If you have any questions, ask. And I literally get zero input. Once in a while, the people will be like, hey, when are you going to sell? When's it going to refinance? When's something going to happen? Like a big, just a money event.
Yeah.
We send out monthly updates, so they're always kept abreast of it. But I have not gotten any real input yet from an LP.
Yeah, that's smart. It means you're running. Their expectations were set in the beginning for you're going to get a return. Is this what you want? Yes, I'd like a return. And then if the returns come in the time frame that you said, there's really nothing to email about. And get it, like you said, getting a monthly update is enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. So where do you want to go from here? Are you looking to go bigger? Or are you good with this 100 to 150 unit time and time again?
No, I'll go bigger. We'll go bigger than 150. It's so hard to find a piece of land to do it. And this is why when you look at even acquisitions, the biggest apartment complexes are like 400 units. It's about, you don't really see much bigger than that very often.
Yeah.
But we'd love to build 400 units. There is a philosophy too, though, that if you do the 400 units, you should build it out 100 units, 100 units, 100 units, 100 units.
Yeah.
So you have 4 phases, and it's just easier to keep the project rolling, and it makes it more manageable. And you have the 400 unit when you're done, all said and done. But yeah, I want to do that. And then I also want to up in Naples and Phoenix, because I also want to have houses there in the warm weather cities. I love Naples, but Phoenix, there's something about the market in Phoenix that I really like too.
Yeah. You're headed for the hot weather out of South Dakota, it seems. Yeah.
Those are the only 2 places that actually are warm almost all year. Yeah. Las Vegas, I guess.
Yeah.
But there's not many.
Yeah.
There's not many places that are warm in the States.
Yeah, I agree. Awesome. So if somebody wanted to get in touch with you, they would go to mailboxmoneyre.com and they can find all the information there.
Yeah, we have all of our social media links and our stories and you could email, you can set up a phone call, you could do whatever.
Yeah, and so when you have a new syndication going, it goes up on there, and then are you just posting stuff like you're looking for investors? It seems like you probably have a lot of people who've done prior projects and they're going to go in again. So how many slots are usually available when you have something new coming up?
Well, normally we talk about it so much that we fill it up kind of within 1 week or over the weekend. We just call them up and be like, hey, what did you want to verbally commit? And then once we have our verbally committed list, then we just kind of put people on the backup list, and then we kind of collect all that money. Take the collecting of the money takes roughly 2 months usually, because our deals are we raise money a little earlier because of its development, and we kind of raise right at the beginning of the process. So we try to get it all verbally committed, and then we just start raising it, and then within 1.5 to 2 months, all the money comes in.
Great. Yeah, I mean, it really seems like you've set up a good system, and I'm sure that it's really cool for your mom to know that she helped you get started on a twin, and now look at what's going on. Is that like very like she must feel some satisfaction in that, and still being a part of it too?
Yeah, I might be not humble enough around my family, and probably should be humbler so they don't blow my head up ever. But once in a while, my dad or my mom will tell me they're proud of me, and it does make me feel good. But they already know that I'm proud of myself most of the time, so they don't add to.
Yeah, they're like, oh, let's just keep him down. We'll just ignore that he has another project going. Great. Yeah, well, it was great. It was great to meet you and talk to you. I think I'm really, really interested in the wellness design. I think it's something that a lot of people need to think of, even on a smaller scale, because you're just going to create better products for people. They're going to be happier, which means as a landlord, you're going to get less calls.
I can already see the entire construction industry is moving toward wellness design. You can see it in every single house that's being built for the most part, unless it's a starter home. Any house that has any type of design in it, you can tell that the windows continue to get bigger. You can tell that the house is directed more towards the south facing sun. Or if you're in Phoenix, you face it north. But that's the different types of, you try to shade in the hotter areas. You try to bring all the sun in, but you still need the natural light. So you still got to get indirect light in Phoenix somehow. But yeah, everything is going toward wellness design in my opinion.
Don't you think that was heavily influenced by the pandemic? I mean, all of us were shut in for 2 years. That it's like we need other stuff if we plan on being home more. Like, what if this is going to happen again? We're going to be in our houses.
It might have accelerated it, but I think it's almost more of an Instagram. The white on white with the plants everywhere. It's almost like Instagram started it, and then once people realize that having bigger windows and patio doors is actually much better, and everyone that comes over sees it, and then now they start upsizing their windows on their projects. I just see bigger windows going in everywhere and much more attention to detail.
I love junking 2 old windows and putting in a bay window. I mean, nothing's better. It's just way better to look out of also. It's just like, it feels better. I mean, it really does.
Yeah. Also, the grids. There's another thing. Like, grids were like, everyone would put grids in the windows. Right now, you see grids are getting pulled out like crazy because no one wants to look.
Yeah, we were just at a house giving a consultation, and they had like high windows. They were like up really high, and they had grids in them. And I'm like, well, I mean, that really makes no sense. Like, what? I mean, what are they even for? It's like does nothing. It's just obstructing my
strictly
view.
Looks.
Yeah, I hate them though.
Strictly aesthetics. Yeah. But it's only aesthetics from the person on the street.
Right. You're right. Exactly.
So you're ruining your view, so someone outside
they can drive by,
which they probably.
That's ridiculous. Real estate's hilarious. Awesome, man. I really appreciate you coming on, and it was great to meet you. One last thing before we hop off. If you had one piece of advice for new real estate investors, the ones who are just getting started, trying to figure out how to have a more mindful approach, given all of your experience in the business, what would be one thing you would tell new real estate investors?
I would just say be patient. That's one thing I've learned, is that I was very impatient at first, and the more patience you have, the better you'll turn out at investing. And it's a long game. You're not going to get any money in 10 years. In fact, you'll have way less money in 10 years, but you'll be equity rich. And then in 20 years from now, then you can start reaping the rewards. But it's a little bit painful to buy real estate at first. You basically buy yourself a job most of the time. I agree. You save up all this money, and now you have more work to do. And, your wife's complaining that we're doing real estate, so it's like more money, and you keep pouring money into it. But 20 years from when you start, you're almost guaranteed that you're going to be wealthy, because it's a very simple way to get wealthy. It's the easiest way imaginable. You could be the dumbest person and invest in real estate and get wealthy.
If you just wait, right? Just wait it out.
Yep. You keep putting your money in.
Yeah, man. Awesome. Great stuff. I appreciate it. It's great to meet you, and I look forward to staying in touch.
Hey, thanks a lot, Jonathan. I appreciate it. It was a great podcast.
Yeah, I appreciate it. All right, hang on one sec. That was episode 29 of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing with my guest, Dusten Hendrickson of Mailbox Money. We will see you next week.